it like it is. You don't care what you think of it.
I really don't care what you say about me, as long as it's not the truth.
They've got a guy named Dale Hansen down in Dallas.
Then all of a sudden, Dale Hansen popped up on the screen.
He's making a difference that quite frankly, not many people could.
That's where the latest conspiracy theory started.
Dialogue with Dale.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, marketing manager for Northwest Insurance, Miss Lila Levy. Shalom, Lila. What's going on, man?
Hola, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm sorry. Come on, stop.
Muy bien. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's been going on with you for the past month?
Okay. I'm in a little bit of trouble.
Tell me.
Okay, so I've been a sports girl since I was young.
Okay.
My brothers played sports. We watched in the house. We watched football, baseball, basketball. Not so much hockey. Right. I got into hockey when it moved here to Dallas in '94. But growing up, I was into sports and I understood it. And I understood periods and half times and quarters and all that.
Right.
The last few years, I've gotten into musical theater and plays and that type of thing. The other night, oh yes, we all know. Yeah. The other night, I was watching a World Cup game and I was like, oh, okay, at the intermission, instead of saying halftime.
Yeah.
So I got a couple flags thrown at me for that, so I'll try to do better because I am known as Sports Lila.
That's so American of you not to know what the hell you're talking about. Well, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. What's going on with you?
Same old. Just excited about today. We got the big fish. Dale bagged the big fish. So,
we just keep chopping ourselves.
I know. I got to give him kudos. Speaking of Dale, also joining me is WFAA TV legend, the self-proclaimed voice of reason, and the man we're calling money around here this month, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hey there, Dale. What's going on, man?
Well, it's been another 30 days in America.
Yeah.
And because of our special guest today, I'm not going to get up on my soapbox a big time, but right. I do want to mention we've had yet another politician in America who says all the accusations against him are absolutely false and not true. So I quit.
Yeah.
Which I've never understood, nor will I ever, as to why you allow somebody to lie about you and then walk away, but they do. And then, as you mentioned, the World Cup. It did remind me again why this is the greatest country in the world, because we don't go stupid on soccer like the rest of the world does. This is the most insane, ridiculous game ever. But I do love the Norway fans. I love the Mexican fans. I love the parties that they throw, at least the way they do it in the States. But I had a choice to watch the U.S. soccer game the other day, or to watch them painting the deck that we have in our backyard, and I decided to watch the paint dry because it was much more exciting. But having said all that, it does prove again why keep calling it soccer. It does not deserve to be called football, because football is the greatest game. And I've got some thoughts about that. And
tell me.
It goes something like this. This is one of my favorite times of the year because it's football time in America. NFL teams have started their training camps, which means in a lot of American cities, the baseball season is over. The NFL is America's game now, and it has been for a long time. It's not a game without its problems, but the way this game is packaged and sold to the American public is almost perfect. Although I do think the greed of the NFL owner is going to change that. Playing 3 days a week is one too many, and we're headed to a day where there's an NFL game every day. Playing a preseason game in London was bad enough. Now we have players traveling to Germany and Brazil for games that count. And this year, the NFL will play in 7 different countries, adding trips to Paris and Australia. And what a fun little trip that's going to be. A flight from Dallas to Melbourne is 17 hours and 40 minutes, but it's only 16 hours coming back. The NFL gave up worrying about the health of their players a long time ago. The health of their players and the quality of the game takes a back seat to how much money can we make. I said years ago the NFL would follow boxing, putting their games on pay-per-view. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet, but they will. When the NFL moved their Monday night games to ESPN, almost everyone I know said, who doesn't have ESPN? I said, everyone you don't know. About half the homes in America don't have ESPN. It's about the same for Netflix. Amazon Prime is higher. About 75% of American homes do. But that's because we need same-day shipping of our toilet paper from Amazon. My biggest concern about the NFL, because I do love this game and absolutely believe it is America's game, is that the greed of the NFL owner will take it down the path of professional boxing. There was a day when the heavyweight champion of the world was the most recognized athlete on the planet. They still make millions on pay-per-view, but I can't tell you who the heavyweight champion is, and I know for a fact most of you can't either. The day is coming when, unless you're willing to pay, and pay a lot, most of America won't know who won the Super Bowl either. But if things keep going the way they have been most of the time, and for the longest time, because it is football team in America, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be the Dallas Cowboys. It just won't be. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Yeah, I love how you had to get that jab in there. On the
I always
Cowboys.
had to take the one final shot, but it does lead us into a pretty special guest, don't you think?
I think our guest is going to have a lot to say about this. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I want to hear more from our guests. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll introduce our very special guest. You've been listening and watching to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
What does coverage under the sombrero actually mean? It's a term at Northwest Insurance Agency that we say with pride, because to us, it means taking care of people the same way we take care of family. Whether it's your car, your home, your business, or your life, we take the time to understand what matters to you and make sure it's truly protected. No call centers, no runaround, just real people, honest advice, and coverage you can trust. That's coverage under the sombrero. Northwest Insurance Agency. Insurance done the family way. Give us a call at 214-352-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Guys, I'm so excited about this. You know, the word legend gets thrown around a lot here in these parts, and I'm guilty of it myself.
But it fits.
But it fits here. Yeah, our guest today is the real deal, man. His accolades and accomplishments are way too many to list, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. He's a 3-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, NFL Hall of Famer, Dallas Cowboy Ring of Honor member, ESPN's football analyst for Monday Night Football, but he's best known as a world-class brewmeister now. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Mr. Troy Aikman. We got a little toast here for Troy.
The beer baron.
What is this stuff here? Troy, welcome, first of all.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be on. This
Yeah.
is 8 Elite Light Lager, 90 calories, 2.6 carbs, no additives, and made with 3 ingredients, water, malt, and hops. So I'm real proud of it, and people that have tried it, I know Dale's a big fan of it. Hopefully y'all
Yep.
are as well.
Well, we will get into this a lot later because there are some things I want to talk about with you selling the beer now a little bit. But if you don't mind, let's talk a little football and take this somewhat in order. What do you make of playing these games all over the world right now? You don't have any of them, do you, for ESPN?
We do not, no.
But can you imagine they're going to Brazil? The Cowboys are going to Brazil in week 3. They come back 7 days later. 7 days later, they play Houston. And then 4 days after that, just 4 days after that, they play Tampa Bay. That's an obscene schedule, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, we're seeing a lot of teams have to go through that here over the last few years. This year, as you mentioned, probably more than in prior years because of the number of games that are going international. I don't know that the teams themselves have embraced it, but they've had to accept it just because of the nature of where the league's going with these international games. And Roger Goodell has made it very clear that he wants to have a global presence with the NFL. And I'm not so sure that down the road we won't have a team overseas. There's been talk about a team maybe eventually in London. They could very well have a 16-game schedule to where it's not just one team in London or someplace like that, but that other teams will play there each and every week so that there's a 16-game schedule. But I think when they see what's happened with the NBA, everybody wants a bigger piece of the pie. And the NFL, although the number one sport and continues to grow, no one's ever completely satisfied with the revenues that they're getting.
Yeah, well, again, there's never enough. I understand, but I was with you, as you may well remember, when the Cowboys had that preseason game in Tokyo, Japan, and at least for me, it took about a week and a half before I felt like I was ready to walk the world again. Can you imagine making a trip to Australia, 17 hours and flying back?
Well,
I mean, that can't logistically be done, can it?
Well, it takes a toll. There's no doubt, and we've seen it on short weeks. Forget international travel. I mean, you combine that with short weeks, then it becomes, even more challenging. But what I feel has happened with the players anyway, and the Players Association is when these things have come up, it's like the 18-game schedule. That's going to happen. And then the players just continue to try to get more of the revenue as best they can. But, you take a guy like Dak Prescott or some of these salaries, if you're making $60 million a year, I think these players, because the pay is so good for so many of them, that they're willing to say, all right, we'll be a little fatigued for that second game coming off Brazil or Australia, but it's just kind of part of what it is.
When you look at Prescott's $60 million, you ever just talk to your dad and say, you couldn't wait? You just couldn't wait. I mean, if Dak Prescott is $60 million, what do you, or you'd be like the Mickey Mantle line, wouldn't you? You just walk into Jerry Jones and say, hello, partner?
Well, Pat Summerall once said to me, he says, Troy, we were all born a generation too soon. And I think that's true, and I know Roger Staubach thought he was born a generation too soon back when I was playing, but it evolved very quickly. I remember I'd been retired about 5 years, and players, quarterbacks at that time were making twice what I had been making when I retired, and then it's just gone up exponentially with this. All these international games and the TV contracts and all the things that you just alluded to, that's a big reason why these players are getting paid what they are.
Now, how's that changed their approach to the game, the money since you've gotten out of the game? I mean, the money's outrageous. You just said it yourself. Do you think the players care for the game the way they used to once they get that money?
I mean, the game obviously has changed. Yeah. And I think, like my era, I'm sure the players of the 70s felt that the players of the 90s didn't quite work as hard or didn't quite get it the way that they wanted. I think it's just kind of human nature to feel that way. But the game has totally changed. The requirements, I guess, of the players. In training camp, they're down in Oxnard. I've got a place in Montecito just outside of Santa Barbara, and I see coaches and players at the local restaurants all the time up in Montecito, which is 30 minutes from where they train. And it's, they're on a clock as soon as they start their morning meetings. And so training camp isn't what it once was. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of, I've never wanted to be the guy the old man who says, get off my lawn. I think there are some positives to the way the game's played now, or the schedule and player safety and things like that. And then I think there were some real positives of my era in terms of team building and, building some culture throughout the off season, which you're just not really afforded the opportunity to do with the way that the league has these mandates on players at the facilities.
Right. Now, are schemes, talking about old days, schemes, are they cyclical, or they're actually making advances in what they're doing on the field? Because it seems to me that, they seem to bring back old concepts as opposed, or can they develop any new concepts at this point?
I think I've enjoyed following the game, continuing to follow it since I retired as a broadcaster. So I get a chance to see some of these great offensive minds, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and people like that, and what they're able to do, which is creative and it's unique. But, ultimately, I think a lot of it does get recycled. The offense that we ran with Norv Turner and Ernie Zampese, originally came pretty much from Joe Gibbs, and yet Sean McVay and Kyle are still using a lot of those same concepts. And even though the game not many years ago got away from the running game, more passing because the rules allowed them to get away with much more, and it was conducive for offenses to spread people out and throw the football. What we've seen now in the last couple of years is the running game come back as well, and we've seen that really throughout the history of professional football. And I'm happy to see that. I like what we did in the 90s with a power running game, and then we still had the ability to throw the football. And I think the teams that you're seeing with the most success right now, they're kind of following that same blueprint.
Really? You think that's coming back, that power running game, the I formation, that good stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Would you also say, with the changes that you're talking about that you've seen since you played, and even changes from the 70s to the 90s, nutrition is a big part of that, workouts, can you elaborate on that a little bit, some of those changes?
Yeah, I think the athletes, like people in general, have gotten smarter about their health, the way that they take care of themselves, what they're putting in their bodies.
And not all of us.
Cheers. That's why you need 8.
That's why I'm drinking 8.
Came up with 8.
I'm losing weight now.
But Yeah, I think, and then along with the salaries going up, more and more of the players are able to afford having a chef come in and cook for them, and have the trainers and the personalized attention that maybe guys weren't able to have in years past. They realize their bodies are really their livelihood. So I think they're taking much better care of themselves than what, certainly back in the, you talk about the 70s and players smoking at halftime and things of that nature. It was a different time, but everyone's gotten smarter. I think the population has in general.
Roger Staubach said to me one time, and he hates it when I quote him on this, but he won't hear about this, so it's not a problem. But he said if he and Drew Pearson had played under the rules that they play under now, that they would have set records that would never have been touched. And then he said, "Don't quote me." I said, "I'm sorry, it's too late." Do you ever look at it the same way, though, that with any envy at all, and I'll get into it a little bit later when we talk a little bit more about the Cowboys, but the numbers that Dak Prescott puts up compared to what you put up and Staubach even put up, and it drives me nuts when people look at that like, oh, well, that proves how great he is. No, it's more of an indictment of the NFL system today than it is the greatness of any of them, not just Dak Prescott, but I would argue almost any of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I think, and sometimes I'm guilty of this as well when I'm broadcasting a game. How most people try to define the greatness of a player is through stats, and so I think stats alone can be misleading. And what's happened, even as you well know, Dale, back when I was playing, we didn't throw the ball as much as a lot of other teams. I was never going to throw for the same number of yards as Brett Favre or Steve Young, Joe Montana.
Well, you could have, but usually you would lose those
That's
games.
Right. I mean, I could have, and I believe that. But our offense was such that just we weren't going to get. I wasn't going to get the opportunity, the pass attempts that those guys were getting, and so my numbers pale in comparison to a lot of the guys of my own era, and that's one of the reasons why.
Wait, hold on a second. Except for that one number.
Except for the one, which is
actually three.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately,
Right.
Why
right?
it winning championships was what defined my career. I'm proud of that, and then the fact that I received the highest individual honor you can receive, while having a career that I feel I sacrificed some personal numbers, and I got voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that's something that I'm really proud of. I think there are those that cover today's game that probably didn't even see me play, and they compare statistics,
Right.
and then that becomes that's a conversation that I just a debate anyway that I won't win, and that's fine. I guess to answer your question. It never has bothered me. I had the respect of the people that I played against. I had the respect of the coaches that I played for as well as against, and that was enough for me. And where I stack or how I'm viewed in the history of the game is really not relevant to me. And you can lose a lot of sleep if it was. And I'm proud of my career, and I leave it at that. So. I'm happy for these guys. I would have loved, to be honest, I would have loved to have played in today's game just because there is so much more put on the quarterback and what they're allowed to do. And I think in every era you had to have someone at that position play at a high level to win. But now even more so than I think at any other time in the league.
Let me wrap up this first segment, and you won't remember this, I'm sure, but it was your rookie season. We were playing golf out at Trophy Club. We were on the second tee box. Now, I've never forgotten this. You were, I think, 22 at that time, and one of the other guys in the group asked you, how long were you going to play? And you said, I'm going to play till I'm 30, and then I'm walking away with my health. You played till you're like 35. Several concussions, back surgeries, and I've heard so many players go through exactly that. What is it about that game, or athletics, I guess, maybe in general, that you start out with this concept of, well, I'm going to make my money, play well for a few years, and walk away, and then when it comes time to walk away,
yeah,
you ain't walking.
No, It's broadcasting. It's really any occupation. I think that if you're at the top of your game, no pun intended, if you're at the top of your occupation, It's because you're invested in it, and it's important to you, and typically it's hard to be great at anything if you don't love it. And the same is true for athletes that, you think one thing, but then time passes and it catches up to you a little bit quicker than what you maybe imagined. I always felt really that I've played 10. I mean, I had so much admiration for guys that had played 10 years. My rookie year and what I went through, I just thought, gosh, these guys that do this for 10 years, I mean, that's a lifetime. And then you get to 10 years and you realize that you're not ready to give it up, that it's just such a part of who you are and what you're about, that especially at the professional level, that when you do give that up, you're done and you don't get to do it anymore.
Right.
And Jason Garrett's dad, Jim Garrett, used to always say, hey, you do it as long as you can, because there's going to come a time when you don't get to do it, even if you want to. And for me, I obviously, by today's standards, retired very young after 12 years. These quarterbacks today, they're going to easily play into their early 40s just because they're not getting hit and the punishment's not what it once was.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that you had a legendary career, and I think these guys that question your statistics are Gen X guys that never saw you actually play, man. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break there, and let's get into what you're doing now. You've taken on a role as a pseudo consultant for the Miami Dolphins. I'd like to hear about that, and I also want to talk about what you feel the status of the NFL is today. You've been listening and watching the Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
If you're a Texas contractor and your insurance guy doesn't speak your language, fire him. We specialize in Spanish-speaking tradesmen. Call today and we'll review your current policy for free. No pressure, just straight answers. You've seen the guy that's your bro. That's us. And just like I protected my grandfather from the sun, we protect you from life's challenges. I'm Mark Villasana, owner and agency principal with Northwest Insurance.
I actually heard about NW agencies through a friend of mine who's been using them for years. Honestly, I've been really impressed. They made the whole process so much simpler than I expected. I was always used to dealing with a lot of back and forth, but with NW it was straightforward, and I always felt like they had my best interests at heart.
We're a full-service independent agency. That means we don't work for a single carrier, we work for you. We've got access to over 100 carriers, so whether you're insuring your home, your truck, or your electrical business, we'll find the coverage that fits your needs and your budget.
It's been a game changer, really. I used to worry a lot about getting the right coverage, especially with my business and home, but now I feel much more confident. They helped me understand my options and made sure I had the right policy for both my business and personal needs.
We specialize in helping hardworking folks, contractors, tradesmen, laborers, the people who keep Texas running. Whether you're a framer in Floresville, a roofer in Seguin, or a plumber in San Antonio, we'll walk you through the process in plain English or Espanol.
We'll pour you a cup of coffee, talk you through your policy, and make sure you leave with more protection and more peace of mind than you came in with.
This is Northwest Insurance. We've got you covered.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen here with the legendary Troy Aikman. Troy, we were talking about your Cowboy career. I want to talk a little about the NFL and go ahead and get into the status of the Cowboys today. First of all, how do you feel about the NFL? Do you think it's a product that's going to continue to evolve, like Dale said, where it's going to eliminate the fan experience or dilute the product?
Well, the NFL, I mean, it's been on this trajectory from at least from when I came in the league in '89. It just continues to grow, and I read a book years ago on what happened to America's game in baseball back when they were the dominant sport, and one of the key takeaways from that was that it got oversaturated, and so that's always been a concern of mine as far as the NFL. Every time there's another day that's given to NFL football, I think, well, maybe this is going to be the tipping point to where people just don't want to watch it, but yet they continue to. So the fan is just simply not getting enough. That's been proven in the ratings, and that drives everything. But at some point, I think everything that goes up has to come down. I mean, it's just the law of physics and gravity, and yet that's not happened with the NFL. So it I don't know when it might happen. It may not happen in my lifetime. Who knows when it might. It has. The sport has fit into this box that's so great for today's consumer that they want it. instantaneously. It's a soap opera, it builds drama,
Right.
all of that. And the NFL, they've done a lot of good things, have taken a lot of good steps, but some of it was beyond their control. It just happened that they got this sport that just fits in perfectly with today's, as I said, today's viewer and today's consumer. Where it goes from here, I don't know, but they're about making money. They're really good at it. They dictate the terms, and people line up to watch it. So,
do you think Taylor Swift has been a big positive for the NFL?
Well, she hasn't been a negative. I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, she's turned a whole group of people that probably didn't even watch much NFL.
Definitely.
Which is amazing. I think it's fantastic. So. I'm all about it, and glad they're together.
Wait a minute. Here I am telling Lila to get involved, and we get to our first Taylor Swift question here.
That's what we call a Lila question around here.
Absolutely.
You've jumped into the foray of the NFL because you recently got involved with the Miami Dolphins. Tell us a little about that. What are you doing for them?
Well, the son-in-law, Danny Silman, I got a call from him last December, and I didn't recognize the number, decided to answer the phone anyway, and he explained who he was. He's the son-in-law of Steve Ross, who owns the Miami Dolphins, and they were in need of a general manager, and I guess he had reached out to a number of people and asked who they felt could help them in their search, and my name kept coming up, so he reached out and asked if I'd be willing to help, and I told him that I would, and the reason I did was because I've been asked a lot over the years if I had any interest in being a general manager, and I always thought that's what I would do when I retired. Quite honestly, I thought I'd get involved in a front office, and then things didn't happen for various reasons. But this provided me an opportunity to kind of get involved. And at first, I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to deliver what they wanted, and so I said, hey, let me give this a little thought. I'll get back to you in a couple of days. And I reached out to a number of people and asked them to make sure that I could give them what they wanted. And to a man, they said, there's no question that you'll be a great resource for them. And so I decided to do it. And very quickly, I realized that I could do everything that they wanted,
right.
As far as helping them identify the right people for those positions. And I think they hired a really great candidate in John Eric Sullivan. He had been with the Green Bay Packers. And then because that went so well, they asked if I'd stay on and help with them in their head coaching search, which I did as well. Going forward, I have no plans to leave ESPN. I'm enjoying my broadcasting career as much as I ever have. And so it doesn't afford me the time that I think it would require if I was to give the Dolphins more than I've given them up to this point. But I am a resource for them. No official title.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe that might change at some point when I decide to walk away from broadcasting, and if I still, want to get involved and stay involved with an NFL team. But I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the people. Steve Ross is a tremendous owner. He does it the way I think you should do it to win, and yet winning has eluded him. They haven't won a playoff game in 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I think they've got the right, and I don't think any fault of his other than they just haven't gotten the right people in the right positions. But I'm hopeful that these two hires are the right guys. I feel a sense of ownership with it. So
right.
I am pulling for them. And if it doesn't work out, I'll be disappointed because I've got fingerprints that are on that as well.
Of course, yeah.
This question first came up, when Tom Brady got involved with the Raiders, and it has been brought up about you, so I'll bring it up.
Yep.
Are you concerned, or has anybody at ESPN expressed any concern at all as to how you will broadcast a Miami football game?
Well, the Dolphins are not expected to be very good this year. They're getting out of cap hell, and so there's no Monday night game with the Dolphins this year. So,
yeah. But if you do your job properly and you've hired the right people,
right.
It's with a possibility that you might be doing.
Here's what I'd say is, and I get it, yeah, and I've talked to the commissioner, and he's fine with what I'm doing and my role, and But I think that anyone that's behind a mic that's calling a game, there's a conflict of interest because you have relationships in this business. I've been doing it for 25 years, and and I have friendships every week that I call a game, whether it's a head coach or an offensive coordinator or a player, or whoever it is, and so I would argue that every broadcaster has a conflict when they're calling a game.
You're absolutely right.
So how that plays in, and I'll just be very transparent. I mean, I don't know if I'll come out right away and say, hey, I've been involved in doing this, because it'll be a year from now. But I think as long as you're upfront with the viewer and let them know the deal, that they can take away from that as far as whether or not you're biased in your analysis.
I had a lot of people. Our mutual buddy Randy Galloway used to give me a lot of grief about it. That you and I would be playing golf in the off season, and then I'm covered. I think many times I was even trying to be too critical of you, though. If I made a mistake, I think there were times that I was too critical of you, trying to prove to the Galloways of the world that I wasn't in your hip pocket and that I didn't consider you a good friend. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think everybody's got a conflict.
No question.
All right,
I want to ask something.
Go ahead.
I want to continue a little bit of the broadcasting conversation. You've been doing it for a long time. Do you still have some challenges come up that you're surprised about sitting in your chair?
Not too much. I still get butterflies going into a broadcast.
Really?
I don't know how you were, Dale, doing a television, sports broadcast, but I know right before we go on air, I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to talk about for 3.5 hours? And do I know these teams well enough? I mean, all the insecurities that we all have as high performers, but as far as anything that really throws me off or anything like that, not so much. Just try to react to the game, and fortunately for me, like my playing career, I've had good people that I work with. Joe and I are going into our 25th year as partners.
Yeah, amazing.
Which has it really been 25 years?
Yeah, 25 of my 26 years will have been with Joe after this year, and he and I are the longest duo to do NFL games, which is crazy. And for a profession that I really thought I'd do it for a couple of years and then move on to something else. I had no intentions of making it a second career, and yet it's been a fantastic career for me, and I'm thrilled to continue to get to do it, and hope to do it for a number of years more.
That's the second time in the last few minutes that you've talked about something that you love doing so much, and the time just flies. And that stood out to me a few minutes ago when you brought that up, to Dale's question about playing and playing longer than you had originally thought. Because when you love something that much, the time just flies. It flies. And like you said, if you're in a job for a long time that you love, you want to stay there, and you're going to become better and better at it, and you don't want to step down.
Well, and the job that I have, there's only so many of them, there's only a handful of them. And the fact that I've been able to be in the number one chair for, now going into my 25th season and timing's everything. After my first year, I was behind John Madden as the number 2 guy at Fox, and Matt Millen left to go to Detroit as a general manager, I think in part because, he knew he was never going to supplant John Madden as number 1 guy. And then a year later, I get a call from John, and he says, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to Monday Night Football. And I didn't know what that might mean to me on the call. I never imagined that it meant that I would get elevated to the number 1 crew. And yet that's what happened. So I was in my second year of broadcasting, and I was with the number 1 crew with Joe Buck and Chris Collinsworth, and I've been in that chair ever since. And so that's unusual. And it's not always because of someone's ability. Sometimes it's because the network loses football, or something else happens to where someone retires, so they put people together differently. And there's a number of reasons as to why guys that have been in the number 1 chair have not remained, and most of the time has very little to do with their own doing. For me, it's worked out. I've been really grateful for it. At some point, it'll come to an end, and when that time comes, I'll be ready for it, and then I'll be on to the next challenge, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Let's take it back to the Dallas Cowboys. When you won that last Super Bowl in '96. Did you think that was going to be the last one for the Cowboys in our lifetime?
Oh, I didn't think
or at least mine.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the last one that I'd be a part of. I thought we would certainly win another one.
You thought you would win another one?
I would.
Yeah.
So I was surprised, but that's where I thought you were going. But no, it's hard to fathom. I mean, it really is, because we see it. We talk every year about parity. And how we've seen teams that have gone from last to first, and teams that have not been historically very good, and yet they still make a run. They'll make it to a championship game, or they'll make it to a Super Bowl, and yet for the Cowboys, that hasn't happened. And it's hard to really put your finger on it exactly why, because when you look at the number of regular season wins that they've had, they're probably top 5 over the last 2 decades,
Right.
and yet it hasn't translated into the postseason. And the Cowboys fans, they deserve better. I do know that. I mean, this is the Cowboys, the flagship franchise, and the fact that the Cowboys in 30 years has not made it to a championship game. I mean, that's, let alone a Super Bowl. I mean, it's just, it's hard to fathom.
Unbelievable, yeah. I'm sorry, Dale, but you've been inside the building as a player and now as a broadcaster. I mean, why do you think? Why can't they get over that hump? What's prevented them? You've seen what winning cultures are. You've helped build winning cultures.
I start with the owner. I'll make it easy for you, but go ahead.
I wanted you to get some confirmation of Dale's opinion, but I mean, I'm asking you. You've been there. Is it the owner?
Well, I think that teams and organizations, whether it's sports, business, I think it all does start at the top, good or bad. I think starts at the top. I don't think Jerry would shy away from that. I think Jerry would certainly take responsibility. He'll take accountability if and when they win, and I think then you have to take responsibility when it hasn't worked out, and it hasn't worked out. I think the interesting thing is I've heard Jerry say that the reason he hasn't hired a general manager is because there are no guarantees, and no one can guarantee him that making a change at GM and replacing himself would guarantee that they would be any better. But if that's your philosophy, well, then you would never fire the head coach either. You would never make any changes because there are no guarantees whatsoever.
Exactly.
But they've been going down this road for so long, and yet it hasn't translated into success in January. And there has to be a reason for that. I'm not in the building. Everyone then has their opinion as to what it might be. But it just doesn't add up. I mean, to me, you have to make changes in how you're doing it. If for 3 decades you've been unable to win back-to-back playoff games to get into a championship game, and then when they've had the number 1 seed in a first-round bye, they haven't gotten out of the divisional round. So it's just 4 wins. I know 5 since our last Super Bowl. I won one of those in the following year in '96 when we beat Minnesota at Texas Stadium. There's been 4 playoff wins in 30 years. So it's just unacceptable.
See, this is why, though, I do point my finger at Jerry Jones, is that, as you mentioned, it's the Dallas Cowboys. This is not the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
This is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the Dallas Cowboys. And most of the coaches that they've had since Jimmy Johnson left couldn't get another job. The one that could was Bill Parcells. And Bill Parcells immediately took the Cowboys back on that winning trajectory. And I think had he stayed with Bill Parcells and stayed out of the way, I think the Cowboys would have won a Super Bowl, which is the argument of, is it the coach? Is it the player? Is it the general manager? Is it the owner? And isn't that what gives Jerry Jones the pass, is that there's not a one of us. I don't think there's anybody in the country that can absolutely point the finger and say, there's the problem. I mean, I like to lean toward Jerry Jones, but I can't guarantee you that as he talks about guarantees. I've said this to people, if Jerry Jones hired a football general manager who then hired the coaches, I think it's a good way to start, but I can't guarantee it.
Well, I think, for me anyway, I mean, the one thing about it in Dallas is there are organizations, and I've said this many times, there are organizations that want to win. They just simply really don't know how. They don't know what to do. Like they've never won, so they keep kind of trying to figure it out and doing different things, and yet it just hasn't worked out for them. The Cowboys are not in that mold, and they haven't been with Jerry as the owner, because he knows why we won with Jimmy Johnson. And I believe the reason we won is because every player in that locker room felt, and I think knew, that Jimmy was calling the shots, that Jimmy was in control of their destiny. So if you didn't do what you were supposed to do by Jimmy's standards, then you were held accountable and you weren't going to be around. And he cut players, and you were around for all that. You saw it, and he was a great evaluator of talent. He drafted those players. He built those teams. He was a tremendous general manager. In fact, I say general manager, he was a tremendous evaluator of talent. And in many ways, he was the de facto general manager. And I think he was probably better in that role than he was even as a head coach, as good as he was there. And so then Jimmy leaves, and until Bill Parcells, no one else has ever had that autonomy that Jimmy had. And Bill came in because he had to.
And no one really after Bill Parcells.
And no one after. And there are those, and I think maybe some people even in the organization would say that those years under Bill Parcells were not successful because they didn't win a playoff game. And I don't believe that because they were 5-11 3 years in a row.
Right.
And Bill came in and made them a contender. And really, for the most part, since Bill left, they've continued to be a contender. So he turned the program around, and yet they then got away from that type of coach. I just feel that as players in a locker room, the head coach has to be the guy who the players feel that they're answering to. And that hasn't always been the case.
Would you also agree that the assistant coaches have to be directly responsible and answer to the head coach?
100%.
Which so many times Jerry has hired a lot of the assistant coaches and told the head coach, oh, have you met your offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Have you met your defense? As Jimmy Johnson himself wrote in his own book, it was the single biggest mistake he made was when he took the job at the University of Missouri or University of Miami. They told him he had to keep all of the previous assistants. And they're sitting there jingling their keys because they all thought they should have been the head coach. And I do, as much as I hated Switzer's time, it was a hard thing for him to do, to come in, replace Jimmy, and oh, by the way, Joe Alizano and everybody else thought they should have been the head coach.
Yeah.
And they also knew that they could pretty much go to Jerry if they had a real problem and bypass Barry. Yeah. And it continued with Chan Gailey, continued with Dave Campo, all the rest of them.
Yeah, with Jimmy, it's probably good that was the requirement for the head coach to come into Miami, because that's probably why Jimmy got the job, quite honestly. Because there were a lot of coaches. Jimmy was coming from Oklahoma State. I just had this conversation with him about a month ago when I was visiting him in the Keys, and he got that job coming off a good year, not a great year at Oklahoma State, not obviously a great university at the time, competing with Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Right.
But it was one of the reasons why he got the job, and it totally changed his career. And I think for Barry, probably a good thing that was pushed on him as well, the fact that he had to keep the assistant coaches, because Barry, and I love the guy, but he was not prepared to be a head coach in the NFL.
Really?
He
That's
really?
5 years from the couch.
So, I can only imagine if he had brought in his own staff, we may have had a staff that didn't know what they were doing.
When he got hired, we were out at the practice facility, and you said to me, hey, Hansen, you're going to love this guy. And I said, no, I know I'm going to love the guy, because he was the craziest head coach I'd ever known in my life when he was at Oklahoma. Now, obviously, it went off the rails rather quickly, but it went off the rails because I still think, and you're right, the assistant coaches saved him.
Yeah.
They would. I'll go to my grave arguing this. Yes, he won a Super Bowl, but a friend of mine once said my mom could have won that Super Bowl with those assistant coaches.
Yeah,
I'm glad that y'all brought up Switzer, because that was one of my big questions for you. Was what were the differences between when he coached you at Oklahoma and then being the Cowboys coach?
Yeah.
What were some fundamental differences?
At Oklahoma, he had every year the Board of Regents had basically renewed his contract 1 year. So he had 4 years on his contract, let's say, and then he'd coach a year, and then they would add another year to his. So he never got beyond 4 years. He always had 4 years on his contract. And when I came in '84, the OU had lost. They'd gone 8-3 3 consecutive years, which, for a top university like Oklahoma, that's just not acceptable. And so they did not renew that year. So now he was on a 3-year contract for the first time in his career. That was my freshman year, and he was an intense guy. I mean, he knew there was some pressure on him to win. You could feel it when you walked in the building. Everything about him was intense, and that's what I knew. We wound up winning a national championship my second year, and then I transferred. So when Jerry was talking about bringing in Barry when Jimmy was leaving, he asked me about it, and I said, I think Barry would be terrific. You know, the guy.
Say what? So I blame you now in hindsight?
And I went around the locker room. I told Irvin, I told Emmett, told all those guys. I said, you're going to love this guy, you know. But the Barry that came in to coach us was not the Barry that I played for at Oklahoma, and he knew the college game, and the NFL game's different. You know, it just is, and he just wasn't well versed on it. And plus, he'd been out of coaching for a little while, and so right away things were different from what they had been with Jimmy. And so, you know, anyone who had been around me during my playing career, I was pretty intense about how I thought things should be done, and I think that if I had a do-over, I think I would have handled the whole situation a little bit better. I look back on it and I don't apologize, but yet I feel like I could have handled some things maybe better than what I did at the time. With that said, I think it became pretty clear very early on that Barry was in over his head, and he won't admit to that, but. You know, when he left, and since then, and I've always liked Barry. I mean, I've never not liked the guy. I just didn't think he should be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and the reasons that he was there was because of what happened between Jimmy and Jerry, and then Jerry wanted someone that would make him feel good about being the owner of the team, and that became the priority for Jerry more than, all right, are we getting the best candidate to be the head coach? And so there was some real frustration for me for 4 years. But Barry, I've gotten a chance to be around Barry a lot since we parted ways after his last year in Dallas in '97. And like I said a moment ago, I absolutely love the guy. I mean, I truly do. I think he's a really good human being. And I've told him, I said, hey, I wish things had been different. I wish we had gotten along better. And he's been very candid with me as well. So it's been good, but that, I'll be honest, I mean, that was a tough 4 years for me. And it you know, just the way that it was because of the way Jerry decided to handle things.
Let me dig down one thing before we move on. This came across my news feed the other day. We were talking earlier about how the game has changed, where the Cowboys are at. Dak Prescott this year, and I like Dak Prescott. Let me be very clear about this. I think I've been one of his biggest supporters from the beginning. But Dak Prescott this year will be the all-time leading Cowboys quarterback for touchdown passes, passing yards, completion percentage, and quarterback ratings. Back to the stats that we're talking about. And yet they still have nothing of any real substance to show for it. When you've got a CD Lamb, you've got the Dak Prescott doing these statistically great things, and yet they still don't win, do you see a short-term turnaround for this? Do you think it's possible, or aren't we going to play this game every year that, well, by golly, this is the year?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be a cynic, but we've been saying that for 30 years, you know. So I mean, at some point, the Cowboys are going to break through. It's just a matter of when. I look at. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dak's, and
well, here's my point. I think Dak, his stats we talk about are great,
right?
But he's not you. He's not Roger Staubach, and hell, I don't even think I'm not even convinced he's Danny White. I mean, Danny White, I don't know if you know about Danny White's game, but Danny White was very good. And I get so tired of people propping it up, and then he becomes the $60 million man. And I'm like, Dak, how about $40 million and buy a bunch of other players around you? I mean, I don't get that part of it.
Yeah, I was asked recently if I thought the Cowboys have let Dak down. And the question came really from the perspective of the defense and not addressing that. And as I said, I find it hard to say that the Cowboys have let Dak down when he's the highest paid guy in the NFL at $60 million a year. I mean, I think he's, and
how can he possibly be the highest paid player in the NFL?
Well, it's all timing. I mean, it's like Brady. Brady should have been the highest paid guy, and yet I don't think he ever was when he was playing, and he gave up some money. And I'm not saying that Dak should give up money. Most players do not. And if I'm in Dak's position, if you gave up money, are you guaranteed that that money then is going to be spent
back to the
in the ways that it
yeah.
should be?
Yeah.
And so the reality is that I've had a number of people say, well, if this quarterback had what Aikman had with a good defense and good offense, they would have won Super Bowls. But yet my era, the Giants, the Redskins, now the Commanders, the Eagles, 49ers, Packers, they all had great offense. They all had great defense. The era was such that, there were a lot of teams that had great everything. We just came together more. Now in today's game, you got to make decisions. So you're either going to be really good on offense, you're going to be really good on defense, or you're going to be some blend in between. Everybody's working within the same constraints. So I don't want to hear anyone say, well, if this quarterback had X, they would have won. No, that's not the way it works. And so can the Cowboys get better on defense? They have to get better. Will the offense be as good as they were? I just saw where Jerry believes they'll be better. It's hard to imagine that they'll be better than what they were a year ago. It was a career year for a number of offensive players last year.
Right. But then again, the defense can't possibly be that bad again, can it?
Well, they can't, and I think that if the defense does their part, at least gets back to respectability, then I don't see how then the offensive numbers are going to be better than they were a year ago. You hope that they're not better, because that means the defense is probably pulling their weight and they're doing a better job. But time will tell. Just every year, and I think that becomes a little bit tiring for me. That you go into training camp. Let's just talk about trying to do everything we can to win Week 1 against the New York Giants. On the road in an environment with a new head coach. It's probably going to be a pretty tough game, even though the Giants have not been very good for a while. As opposed to talking about playoffs, Super Bowls. It's been 30 years. I don't think Super Bowl should be coming out of their mouth right now.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, talking Cowboys, Jerry, Barry makes me want a beer. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to get into your new foray, the beer thing, because I sipping on it here.
I'm about ready to hit my second over here, by the way.
Hansen's already going crazy on it over here. You've been listening and watching the Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, but I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire, or a flood, or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen with the legendary Troy Aikman. And Troy, we were talking Cowboys, and I mentioned that gave me a little headache there, made me felt I needed a beer. And speaking of which, you are a beer meister now. You have this beer called 8. Tell me a little bit about it. What got you into this game?
Well, I worked for a distributorship when I was in college. When I was leaving Oklahoma and going to UCLA, it was a Miller distributorship in Tulsa. And so that was my first introduction into the beer business. And I learned a lot. I stocked shelves, did placements, and built displays. And then the second half of the summer, I rode around with the owner, calling on accounts, and then I went out to UCLA and played and came to Dallas, became close friends with Barry and Lana Andrews, who own Andrews Distributing. So in a weird way, I kind of feel like I've been in the beer business long before I actually got into it. I did a lot of things at Andrews Distributing with their sales meetings and things like that. Close friends with the family, and but it was right around COVID. I've always liked beer, and was approached about making my own beer, and I gave it some thought, and I felt that if I could do it better than what was on the market, I would be interested. Yeah. And better, I just felt like it could be done cleaner, and something that was better for you. I reached out to Mike McGuire, who now runs Andrews Distributing, and I said, I'm thinking about doing this, and tell me why I should not, because it's as competitive a business as there is, and in the light beer category in beer, that's the most competitive. And I thought he would say, yeah, you don't want to do this. It's an uphill fight. And but yet he said, I think it'd be fantastic. So it was enough of a push that I decided to do it. Spent 2 years coming up with the recipe. Went to Corvallis, Oregon. They've got a fantastic beer program at their food and science department. And I just kept going back to him saying, I want this to be the best for you beer on the market. And so from that is 8. And what makes it unique is there are no additives. There's no added corn, syrup, rice, sugar, sweeteners of any kind. And we're the only mass-produced beer that can say that. So I don't want to say we were ahead of our time, but in a lot of ways I was, because at that time there wasn't this movement of better for you. Now you go through any aisle in a grocery store and there's a better for you section within every segment.
Right.
And now there is in the beer cooler. And so we have 3 ingredients. We put it on the can. It's water, malt, and hops. There's nothing added to it. And yet it tastes like beer. We use organic hops, organic grains as well. And so I'm really proud of what we have come up with, and we continue to grow. We're showing that we can compete. We're in Texas and Oklahoma. And for those now that are more mindful, even at a time when alcohol sales are declining, the premium light beer category, which is what we're in, is increasing, and 8 is growing as well, because people like the flavor and they're realizing that it truly is a better for you product.
Do you want to grow regionally, or do you want to also or grow nationally?
Yeah, I would
plan?
love to. I'd love to be national, and right now we've come out and we've acknowledged that we've had some meetings and we've got more coming up. We're looking for a strategic partner right now, because we have proven on a local level, local being Texas and Oklahoma, that we can compete with Mick Ultra, who actually dominates that section. And so we feel the timing is perfect right now in order for us to continue to grow and take advantage of what we have built. And so we're actively looking for a strategic partner as we speak. And we've got some meetings coming up, and I'm hopeful that one of those happens, and I believe that it will. And I think then we would expand regionally and likely nationally.
That's great.
I think a great part of that decline in alcohol sales started when I retired. Once I wasn't making it, well, never mind. I've asked you this before, but I love the answer. I was in Colorado when John Elway retired, and then he came out and was endorsing Coors in Colorado, for goodness sakes. And he got severely criticized by people thinking that was such an improper, unethical thing for him to do. Has there been any blowback to you of the All-American boy promoting beer?
No, not that I'm aware of. And with social media, I think I'd probably be
you probably would have
some
heard
of
by
it. But
now.
no, I probably enough people probably saw me out during my younger days drinking a fair number of beers.
Or on my Sunday night show on your birthday.
Well, that too. My mom recorded that segment, and it literally took me about 10 years before I actually put it in and watched it. And I was better than I thought.
As I said, I don't know what he's doing or where he's at, but I want to go there and I want to have what he's having. It was. Is this part of? And I hope you take this the right way. But when you left football, you had a car dealership. You've always been driven. Is part of this chasing Staubach?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, it is.
Oh, I didn't think it'd be that blunt. Okay, go ahead. Explain that.
I said this. I've said this a few times publicly. I've never talked to Roger about it, and I probably should. And Roger's he's a very close friend of mine, a very special friend. But what I have admired about Roger, besides the fact he's just a tremendous human being, is what he was able to do when he got away from football. And he obviously still leveraged his football career for his real estate business, but what he was able to build was really special. And so I have always wanted to do something outside of sports. And it is why I got involved in the car business. I got involved, although it is still sports, it was part of why I got involved in Hall of Fame racing, NASCAR with Roger. Was a minority owner of the San Diego Padres at one time. Been involved in a lot of different things, but yeah, I've always had an itch to want to do something beyond sports. Broadcasting's been a great second career, but it still revolves around the fact that I played in the NFL.
But not enough?
Yeah, not quite enough.
I guess my real question is if you don't find that great success, will you feel that you somehow missed out?
I
or fell short?
I don't think so. In my opinion, 8 is already a huge success. What the story is going to be when it's all said and done, I really don't know. But what we've already been able to do, I feel has been successful, and I'm really proud of it. My foray into the car dealerships, those were successful for me. Happy about that. I feel like I've gotten a chance to do a lot of things that has gone well. So I don't feel like I'm chasing something so much. But to go back to your original question, Roger has always been a mentor of mine, someone who I've held in high regard, and one of the reasons why I've gotten involved in some of the things that I have has been because of the admiration that I have for what he built in real estate.
Mark and I interviewed Ed Too Tall Jones on another podcast that we had, and he said something very similar to what you just said. He said that he would see Roger leave in a suit, and he was like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And he was doing the real estate, after hours and in this, off season. And
there's a lot of players out there that they're chasing Ed Too Tall Jones and some of the things that he used to get into. He's impacted a few people too.
That dude deserves another drink of 8.
I have one more question. Do you have anything before we wrap up?
No, go ahead.
When you look at this entire NFL career, and you see what's happening a lot today, happened to a young Cowboys player recently, Marshawn Nealon, I believe the young man's name was, CTE. With all the concussions that you had and the back surgeries and the like, as you work your way to 60, do you spend any time worrying about what maybe the future might hold because of your career?
Yeah, a little bit. To say that I don't think about it from time to time would be less than honest, but I have been tested very well. I'm acutely aware of if I feel that I'm, where my memory is or head issues or things of that nature that some of these players are going through. Unfortunately, some of my former teammates have been dealt some tough hands, that they're going through. And yet that hasn't happened. I do think the broadcasting helps. I know what I have to be able to recall. So I think the studying for that, the preparation, the calling the games, it is, I guess, a bit of a test on a weekly basis as to where I'm at. But also, I've kind of tried to be proactive. I'm totally into all the biohacking. I mean, it's ridiculous what my day involves, to try to remain as healthy as I possibly can. And I think that helps as well. I think lifestyle plays into it as well. But there's no doubt that players that played as long as what I have, that have had the head injuries, although I did feel that when I retired from the game, if I had 7 concussions or whatever it was, I don't know the exact number, I always felt that guys who got hit way more than I did, even though not reported, I felt that they were at risk of way more things down the road that might come into play, and that's kind of proven itself out. But up to this point, I feel good. I've had no issues whatsoever. But to say that it doesn't play into my thinking from time to time, that wouldn't be accurate.
You think the NFL can survive this, or might that become a tipping point in the future where the game? I've always thought maybe they might have to put a weight limit in. I mean, the players keep getting so much bigger and so much stronger and faster. But can this league continue to grow if we continue to hear the stories of players with debilitating injuries and CTE in their later years?
Yeah, I think it's one of the real reasons why the league has tried to get out in front of it with player safety and try to get the head out of the game as much as they can. We've seen it at the grassroots level with the kids. They're just not signing up and playing football the way that they once did.
If you had a boy instead of girls, would you have wanted your boy to play?
The way I've always responded to that question is I wanted my girls to play sports because of all the benefits of it. As a girl, obviously they weren't going to, or at least mine weren't. Now some are playing football and tackle football, but I encourage that. I would want my son to play sports. If he wanted to play football, I would not discourage him from it. I just don't know that I would be encouraging him to try to play football if it wasn't a passion of his, because it's real. But with that said, Dale, what football has done, what it did for me, and what it's done for so many other young men, it does turn young boys into young men. I think because it's a discipline within that sport that you don't get from any other sport. And I played baseball and I played basketball. But it develops young boys in a way that I don't think other sports do, even though the game is a little different now from what it once was. But you got to develop a little resilience and a little toughness. If you're in Oklahoma and you're going through two-a-days and dealing with some of the heat, the Texas kids, Florida kids, and what's required to be successful as a football player, I think it teaches you a lot of life lessons.
I told you he was the best. I told you he was the best.
I'm going to give you 2 stars for today, Dale. Troy, thank you so much for being here. Tell us real quick, where can we find 8?
Well, you can go to 8beer.com, put in your zip code. It'll tell you exactly where it's at in your area. But it's in all the major retailers, and it continues to expand into others.
Well, again, I thank you for being here. I admire I admire your career since day one. You've been a success in your playing career and your broadcasting career. And now I wish you much success on your Brewmeister career.
Thank you so much.
Lila, do you have any announcements for us?
I do. By the way, the beer is delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing it, Dale. So for those of y'all that are needing insurance out there, homeowners, commercial, rental, or auto, please call us at Northwest Insurance Agency. We're at 214-352-5656, or you can email us at info@nwagencies.com. Also, for all of those thousands that are plugging up our emails that they send to Dale, please email us with suggestions, questions, comments, DaleH@nwagencies.com. Also, you can follow us, Dallas Dialogue with Dale, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Okay? Thanks so much.
What do you have for us next month, Dale?
Well, we'll make a perfect segue. We go from talking football with Troy Aikman to the homeless problem in America today. As I'm going to be saying next month in my commentary about this, I think I have an opinion about almost everything. I think I have an idea about how I can solve almost every problem in America. I'm not saying I have the right answers, but I have one. Except the homeless problem. I have no idea, but we've got an expert coming in to talk to us about it, and that's what we're going to talk about next month.
Well, I'm looking forward to that one, but to be honest with you guys, it's going to be hard to top this one.
Oh, wow.
But I can't wait for it. We will see you next month on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Thank you.